Hello everybody, once again this is AikawaKazu. Welcome to the 450 mark skill balancing review video where I highlight and pick out key changes mentioned in the 450 mark patch. For details of what the 450 mark patch is about, refer to the links provided in the description below the video. This video will focus and talk about the key changes for the Warrior, Archer, Sorceress, Cleric and Academic class. Video footage will be shown for all the 5 basic classes for the changes at hand as much as possible, and get ready for an insightful and informative video. You can click on the section that is relevant to you in this selection screen and click on the top left corner annotation to come back here anytime you want for the selection of other sections. You can also simply continue to listen to the rest of the video from a moment after this short pause. Let's start with the changes which many will have reasons for making a big hoo-ha and commotion about. Yes, let's dive straight into the Warrior skill changes pertaining to the Moonlord class first. So what has changed that is significant to the Moonlord? First, we have Moonblade Dance damage reduction of 20%, Moonlight Splitter damage reduction of 10%, Crescent Cleave damage reduction of 30%, so many reductions so far, but we have Cyclone Slash damage increased by 25%, Half Moon Slash increased by 40%, Flash Stance damage by 100%, Right Click Final Wave damage increased by 300%. Now before you go and shout, OMG Moonlord's got the tab word starting with the little n, I'm not going to use that word. Let's do a comparison with the new skill that is added for the Sword Master, which is the Brave skill. So what exactly is Brave? Brave is a self buff for Sword Masters that increase the damage for all skills by 25%. This skill above lasts for a total of 11 seconds at level 5, which is max level for 50 cap and has a cooldown of 35 seconds. Eclipse Super Armor debuff is also transferred to Brave and Eclipse will no longer have that Super Armor debuff. Now with this skill in mind, let's do a 1-for-1 comparison between pre-450 mark patch Moonlord skills and post-450 mark patch. For as accurate results as possible, I had the luxury of using the test servers to do this comparison, and here are the stats for the character I used in the test server compared to my current Moonlord AikawaKazu. Both characters have critical cap for level 50 and I tried my best for them to have the same overall effective magic attack, where AikawaKazu actually had more than the test character. The first skill, Moonblade Dance. As you can see, the damage is the same, and do realize that the test server character has lower effective magic power compared to AikawaKazu. Moreover, AikawaKazu has 40% damage increase from level 6 Provoking Slam, while the test server character only has level 5 without the skill ring. Both characters are using the damage plate for Moonblade Dance, which meant that with Brave, actual Moonblade Dance damage is actually 5% higher compared to before 450 mark patch. This actually shows why Moonblade Dance damage had to be reduced, if not you'll be way overpowered without a damage reduction if Brave is introduced. Let's move on to the comparison for Moonlight Splitter EX. Similar to Moonblade Dance, the damage reduction to Moonlight Splitter did not really affect much at all. Even without Brave, you're looking at around 2,000 to 3,000 damage difference only. As you can see so far, the so-called damage reductions to Moonlord core DPS skills isn't much of a big deal. Now, Crescent Cleave damage reduction of 30% is definitely significant to that skill particularly, but personally, aside from fighting huge bosses like Sea Dragon, Green Dragon or last bosses in Archbishop Nest or Gankentus Nest, Crescent Cleave has never been part of our core DPS. This 30% damage reduction is definitely applied at the wrong time since it was in view of Crescent Cleave EX in 60 cap, and I do agree that it is the case. To tackle this, you can either ignore leveling Crescent Cleave to maximum level for 50 cap, that's if you can afford to skill reset when 60 cap arrives, or simply add it to level 6 for 5 waves will do. Now let's move on to the skills where damage was increased. First up, we have Cyclone Slash. So the damage increase is definitely significant here, around 30,000 damage if used with Brave, and could be even higher with Provoking Slam level 6. Overall, it's definitely a welcome change from Moonlords, as reading forum threads, many veteran Moonlords actually find Cyclone Slash not worth leveling at all. For now, I'll say it's definitely worth it if you're a pure PvE Magic Moonlord build, and in the future with Cyclone Slash EX, where the initial hit damage is increased by 30%, this skill will definitely be useful in our DPS rotation. With that, let's move on to Half Moon Slash. Oh my goodness, that 40% damage increase is huge. Now getting that Half Moon Slash skill ring seems much more worthwhile. Combined with Brave, Half Moon Slash could be a skill even PvP gladiators who want to go hybrid like Mizu Egu will want to go for even more. For players who are pure PvE, get the 20% damage plate and embrace the newly improved damage for Half Moon Slash. Now if you're still skeptical and not convinced that Moonlords are slightly better off after the patch after what I've shown you so far, well that's fine. But after you see the improvements to flash stance, you probably will change your mind. Now, is that good enough for you? I think that's good enough for me. Let's say we don't use Flash Stance with Brave since you use it in conjunction with other skills and the duration of Brave does not last long enough for you to use Flash Stance and Brave together. We take 75% of 370,000 damage and we still get 277,000 damage without provoking Slam level 6, which means that it could be around 299,000 damage, close to 300,000 damage just using it with provoking Slam alone. Compare that to the measly 111,000 damage we got previously, to a 300,000 damage potential, this is definitely a buff for Moonlords. Now your challenge will be to find the correct moments to use Flash Stance so that its maximum potential can be reached when facing certain NAS bosses. But you can't deny the usefulness in clearing of dungeons, as I believe its piercing effect has also been improved. And you thought that Flash Stance is just a PvE improvement? Nope, check out this PvP clip of Flash Stance where the casting speed is reduced by 50%. Now, 16,000 damage is definitely a big improvement from what we had earlier on, but the 50% reduction in casting speed requires you now to create opportunities for Flash Stance to work. Do note that for both PvP and PvE, the delay that we had before sending out our first wave has been removed. Go replay the PvP portion for both pre and post 450 mark patch if you don't believe it. In the recent 1-2 Moonlord Full FD Full Crit item build article, I actually wrote a passing remark that I was thinking of changing my main to my Gladiator Secret Sword. Some players actually took it wrongly and actually started scolding, and some even insulting me say that I should stop giving players false hope about Moonlord. I sincerely hope that the effort in putting this video footage together to explain clearly about the changes of Moonlord class proves this statement to be otherwise. Do note that I've been a person that have been fighting discrimination against Swordmasters since the start of 24 Cap with the writing of my guides and the producing of my videos solely to teach and inspire aspiring Swordmasters, Moonlords and Gladiators to be the best they can be. I'll most probably be the last person in Dragon Age to turn my back on the Swordmaster class, so please don't cross this line. And if you still think that Moonlords are still not worthwhile to continue to play after watching this video, then by all means play another class. I think I've said enough of this, which is to play the class where the playstyle suits the reason why you're playing Dragon Nest. If you're playing Dragon Nest because you want to be the highest DPS, then Moonlord class is probably not for you. I think that's enough ranting for now. Let's move on to our brother in arms, the Gladiator skill balancing changes. For Gladiator's front shove mechanics is changed, Eclipse Bomber debuff removed and placed in Brave. There's also an added pulling effect. Triple Slash EX damage increased by 15%, meaning that this will not be benefited by Moonlords if we have Triple Slash, as it applies only to the EX version of the skill. Hacking Stance damage increased by 15%, Finisher's Hack damage increased by 30% and some mechanic changes. Rage/Line Drive damage increased by 20%. Overall, Gladiator is definitely getting some needed buffs, alright, and emphasis is on the word needed, which I'll explain why in my afterwards or perhaps during the process of showing the changes. For front shove, basically what is changed is that bulk of the damage is actually now on the last slash. For PvP, instead of the usual 800, 800, 800, 800, 2000 damage, it is now changed to 500, 500, 500, 500, 3.6k damage. I believe this change is good for PvE as the initial charging up damage is sometimes neglected or not registered when you use front shove. PvP wise, it is good for you if you can get your last slash to hit most of the time, but for the moments where you're cancelling your last slash to avoid getting Crisis Halt for example or countered for that matter, it means a large portion of the front shove DPS will not be utilised. I hope this helps you decide if you want to max front stroke or not depending on your skill level as well as your playstyle in PvP. PvP wise however, I believe this skill is definitely worth getting to the maximum level. Let's move on to Eclipse skill changes. Eclipse skill damage is not changed at all when looking at the skill description. DPS wise, it is the same old Eclipse that we knew. Some players have mentioned that there's no point getting level 6 Eclipse and that level 1 is enough, but personally I feel that the DPS of this skill has always been great even before the 450 mark patch for both PvP and PvE regardless if there's a SA debuff effect. The AoE radius and instant cast is probably why it's one of my favourite skills for both initiating, cancelling and catching of players in PvP. For those who doubt its capabilities to deal damage in PvP, try getting an Eclipse 20% damage plate and use it in Comm on PvP and watch the magic happen. I'll skip talking about triple/EX and hacking stance damage increase since it's just a straightforward damage buff. I'll move on to Line Drive instead since many people are actually debating whether to get this skill to level 7, some are actually choosing to put it at level 1. Now that we are going to be doing some damage testing, let me share with you the stats of my own Gladiator Secret Sword and a Gladiator I used to test for the 450 mark patch changes. The thing about line drive is that you need to know how to land at least 3 if not 4 hits for most of the time. During 32K I had a video showing exactly how to do it. You basically need to aim at the bottom left corner of the target, which I did in the footage before this, or you simply try to push your target back against the wall. Players against getting line drive to maximum level is because of how erratic this skill sometimes performs. However, on most NES bosses that are large enough, I doubt you will have problems landing all that 4 hits. Personally, I'll definitely max this skill because of the 20% damage increase applied to PvP as well. Watch the footage of the pre-450 mount and post to see the extent of the increase. With that, let's move on to the highlight for Gladiators, which is the 30% damage increase for finish attack as well as the changes to the damage ratio bonus. Now, from the footage we know that finish attack is definitely buffed up significantly, but you can't really see the changes to the damage ratio bonus. From the video footage that is with the improved finish attack, it was an overkill and I only realised it after I reached home. Thankfully, I managed to get a screenshot of finish attack done with Brave and Provoking Slam that is on the boss at around 2x HP to help solve this damage bonus mystery. Is there even a mystery? Am I overthinking things? Actually, there isn't any mystery. I went to compare in-game skill description versus the one on the updated skill simulator on DN MMO site and realised that the 0.5% thingy they've been talking about all the time have just been the bonus damage you get for every 1% HP below 60%. If you look at the screenshot above, comparing the pre-450 mark patch finish attack with the latest one on the T4 simulator, the difference is in the growth rate for the bonus damage. It is no longer an increment of 1% but is 0.5% instead. See level 1 to level 2 finish attack increment in bonus damage on the right underlined in red, which is the T4 simulator one, compared to the one on the left, which is the old finish attack skill description. There is no actual nerf to finish attack except that the skill ring for finish attack now only improves the bonus damage from 3 to 3.5% instead of 4%. So if you don't use the skill ring, there is no nerf. Let's not forget to see how the changes in finish attack has affected PvP as well, especially with the introduction of Brave. That's all for the Swordmaster side of the house. For the Warrior, let's move on to the Mercenary. All of the changes are mostly related to PvP. Battle Hull buff is reduced by 50%. This 50% applies to each specific level of Battle Hull. Current Battle Hull at level 1 gives 44 P attack and M attack and 680 critical, but with the 450 mark patch are looking at 22 P attack and M attack with 340 critical. Stun chance is unchanged at 20% as it is a flat value that is not increased from level 1 to level 3 of Battle Hull. This meant that at level 3 Battle Hull, buffs will only be 159.5 P attack and M attack and 900 critical. There is a 50% reduction to the damage reduction effect for Iron Skin from 22.5% down to 11.25%. Crisis Hull cooldown for PvP is increased from 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Circle Swing has slight reduce in time allowed for hits, which I'm guessing to be the shortening of the casting animation of the skill. Recorded video footage of pre-450 mark patch to compare with the test character to see if there's any significant difference. Last but not least, Hull charging for PvP, also known as Empowering Hull, where the super armor effect is reduced from unlimited to 200. We will start to see if there's any difference in Circle Swing. Is the second footage slightly faster? Honestly speaking, I can't tell the difference. For the Mercenary pros out there, do point out if you can spot any difference and leave behind as comments for this video. Let's move on to Hull charging super armor testing, also known as Empowering Hull. As you can see, Hull charging reduction to 200 super armor can actually be broken by skills such as Firewall as well as Shockwave. I'm guessing other skills like Circle Break or any other skills with high acid breaking can now be able to break the super armor of Hull charging. I think this will be especially useful to group PvP or KOF PvP tournaments in the future, as now Hull charging or Empowering Hull no longer gives foolproof super armor to party members. That will be all for the entire warrior skill balancing changes that I want to point out. Let's move on to the archer side of the Hull, starting with changes to the bow master class. First up, Longbow and Crossbow Mastery 30% increase. What it actually means is a 1.3 multiplier to the current mastery stats. For example, level 1 Longbow Mastery of 3% before the patch will become 3.9% after the patch. Siege Stance gets 100% damage increase but a 50% reduction in its duration. Tracking Arrows PvE damage increased by 30% but PvP damage decreased by 20%, and cooldown for Tracking Arrows in PvP is increased from 16 to 24 seconds. There are improvements to the Bullseye buff as well, and last but not the least, mechanic changes to Sylph's 8 buff, which is now a Spirit Boost like buff for Bowmasters, except that it gives an increased 15% damage increase for all skills as well as movement and action speed buff of 30%. We will start with Tracking Arrows comparing damage before 40-50 mark patch and after. The damage reduction is definitely significant for PvP, but also look towards something like a limit of 2 tracking arrows for soft ban matches. Even with this nerf, when going against pro snipers who didn't need TA previously, it is not the tracking arrows that is the problem. The problem is the follow-up skills that combined will probably be enough to kill a player very quickly. We will move on to Siege Stance combined with Sylph's 8 buff to give you an idea of the changes of these two skills. As you can see, the action speed boost could be useful as Siege Stance without Sylph's 8 buff might actually be too slow. Sylph's 8 buff lasts for 14 seconds and Siege Stance lasts for 8 seconds in this new 450 mark patch. This gives you another 6 seconds or so for Sylph's 8 buff to benefit other skills as well. You could also start with your usual DPS rotation, then ending with Siege Stance if you so prefer. Last but not the least, Magical Breeze is fixed for artilleries where party buffs such as Battle Hull and Striking will no longer give you a normal increase in stats. Now if you think that Moonlords got hit hard, now take a look at Acrobats. The entire pitch is almost rage, which means that their skills will change in a way that does not benefit them at all. Well, let's start with Shortbow Mastery, 30% increase. Similar to Longbow and Crossbow Mastery, this 30% applies like a 1.3 multiplier. So level 1, 3% increase will be changed to 3.9% for example. 2. Eagle Dive PvE damage increased by 30%. Evade PvP added 5 seconds cooldown, it didn't have cooldown previously. Tip Top's PvP cooldown per level increased by 2 seconds. Circle Shot PvP cooldown increased by 4 seconds. Cyclone Kick, Spiral Vortex, Hurricane Dance PvP damage reduced by 50%. Double Somersault Kick PvP damage reduced by 30%, and Somersault Kick PvP damage increased by 30%. Before the Acrobats and Tempers go all crazy at the nerfs, let's take a look at this first. The first video footage was taken from pre-450 mark patch Tempers. One Hurricane Dance, double somersault kick and Spiral Vortex take around 40,000 damage. This combo is very standard for decent Tempers. My point is, with the 50% damage nerfs, there's two ways to go about it. One, instead of just Hurricane Dance, Spiral Vortex and double somersault kick, add in Cyclone Kick, Eagle Dive and Booming Kick and the result will be similar. Now if you add up Cyclone Kick, Spiral Vortex and Hurricane Dance after the damage reductions, you still get a total of around 28,000 damage. Which is still significant and decent considering the fact that Academics only have 38,000 HP or so, and Swordmasters only have 53,000 HP. If you need inspiration, Timeless, the CDN Temper still managed to get top 2 in ladder despite these nerfs to his class, though he had the help of Binding Shot EX due to 60 cap. Nevertheless, to put it simply, it just means that you need to catch your opponent twice instead of just once. For other classes who die extremely quickly due to one mistake against Acrobats, you now have an extra life due to this damage reduction, so do cherish it. If there's anything that's of real concern, I would say the cooldown increase to mobility skills of Acrobats such as Tip Tops and Skill Shot are the real blow to this class. As Falala himself put it is okay to nerf our DPS skills, but nerfing our mobility skills is a little overkill. I'm sure many Acrobats will agree to this statement as well. Moving on to the Cleric skill balancing changes that needs attention. There's only two, which is the Crusader's Judge power being fixed for PvP as well as Stance of Faith duration reduction of 40% for PvP. Next, we have the Sorcerer skill balancing changes starting with the Elemental Lord, with some of these changes applying to Force users as well. Shockwave super armor breaking power increase and poison missile hit number increase. I believe these two changes have already been applied in our current patch before 450 mark patch. It was just that it wasn't mentioned earlier on. You could call it a ninja patch, not too sure, but after testing it is still 19 hits per poison pool, and Shockwave super armor breaking power seems to be the same, allowing you to break skills like Flying, Swing, and even Demolition Fist. Firewall super armor defense increased, Freezing Field gets a 30% damage reduction for PvP, Frozen Spike gets a 20% damage reduction for PvP, probably for Frozen Spike CX in the future in 60 cap. I don't think everyone actually knows that level 11 Freezing Field damage is actually a lot currently, and it is still pretty decent even after the 30% damage reduction. Check it out. Even with the damage reduction, I think it is still good to go to get level 11 Freezing Field for PvP, especially for ladder, as your 8% ice attack potentials can come into play as well. Next, we put the increased super armor defense of Firewall to the test, comparing pre-450 mark patch status with the 450 mark patch. As you can see, with the 450 mark patch, Firewall now has enough super armor defense to prevent a cancel from Storm, and man, Storm can cancel many skills as far as I know. This increased super armor defense will help Elemental Lords who want the PvP without shield to stand a much better chance other than relying on their flinching skills such as Frost Wind and Flame Spark, as well as the need to kite when choosing to play without shields. And for Force users, there's only one notable change, which is the increase in damage reduction for Force shields, up from 24% to 30% at level 4, and cooldown time decreased by 5 seconds from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. That's definitely a good thing for Force users for PvP. I've also read on the forums about Lunar Ray being able to be cancelled by Blink. According to Sleepy Now, you can already do so. And finally, this brings us to the last but not the least class to be covered today, which is the Academic class, starting off with the Engineers first. It is indeed a gloomy day for them Engineers, as all summons except for Alfredo has got their HP pool nerfed for PvP only. All towers will be 10% of the summoner's HP, which is around 3.8k, as Engineers have around 38,000 HP in Com on PvP. MacLeod EX will have 10% of the summoner's HP, but non-EX versions only has 5%, which means a pitiful HP of around 1.9k. For Game Masters, Megadunk EX iframe is removed, your special edge over the shooting stars are now gone as well. Ping Pong EX and Splash on the other hand, as far as I know, have not been changed yet, so the hit counters for Ping Pong EX is still 11 for PvE. Didn't really check PvP as well, but I don't think it's being changed. And yep, check out the video footage for all the changes mentioned here. And next, we have the skill balancing changes for the Alchemist class. Icicle Expression Ultimate skill damage reduced by 30% in PvP, slow effect reduced from 50% to 20%, and lasts only for 6 seconds. You will see a debuff counter that lasts for 11 seconds, but the rest for the 5 seconds is for the burn damage taken from the skill. Magma Wave and Poison Break damage reduced for 3 bubbles down from 25% to 15%, and for 5 bubbles down from 50% to 25%. Ice Pump now has 10% of Summoner's HP instead of being an invincible object. General animation and shattering effect time reduced for Magma Punch, Wall and Wave, Ice Punch, and Poison Pool. Video footage will be in the following sequence. Footage will show the reduction in animation and shattering effect time for skills mentioned, followed by Ice Pump having 10% of Summoner's HP, and finally Icicle Expression comparison pre-450 patch and with 4050 patch. Well, that's it for the 450 mark skill balancing review video. I took around 12 hours to stitch together all the footage from the 5 basic classes, edit and produce this video. It is around 6 AM right now. I think I'll be going to get some rest and hopefully server maintenance will be over when I wake. Can't wait for Brave, man. Check out what the 450 mark patch brought for Dragoness aside from the skill balancing. Links provided in the description below the video. There are many other cool stuff such as Colosseum and ladder ranking system, new PvP ranks, unification of powders for suffix crafting, shared character storage for both cash and non-cash items, and many more. I hope this video has helped archive some of the things that will definitely be missed by many players, things such as engineers before the nerfs on summons, as well as Baby Ichigo iframe. Man, I'm gonna miss commentating that sentence, especially for XQT. As always, thanks for watching. Remember to stomp the like button if you enjoyed this nearly half hour of information goodness. God bless once again, subscribe to TEGaming if you want to be notified when there's a new video from us, and I'll see you guys next time. Hello everybody once again, this is AikawaKazu and welcome back to another Showmatch. And you guys asked for Moonlord PvP, so I have Crystal Lids for you from Springroot. I'll just call him Crystal for short. So my computer kinda act up here at the beginning of the match. He's on Moonblade Dance, hitting on the Belfry right now, it's already down to about 55% HP and Crystal is doing well.